You know that feeling, when your body is completely still, but your mind is still running, still replaying, still solving, still carrying the weight of a day that already ended. Tonight, we are going somewhere safe with that feeling, into what the science of the exhausted mind quietly reveals, and how it already knows the way back to peace. Welcome to Psychology for Sleep. Wherever you are right now, perhaps lying in the dark, with thoughts still flickering at the edges, let that be exactly right. Let this moment be exactly enough. Tonight, we will trace 100 psychology facts about the healing mind, from the first signal your neurons send when exhaustion arrives, to the slow, cellular repair that begins the moment you surrender to stillness. From the invisible architecture of your inner world, to the quiet truth that your mind already knows how to find its way home. These gentle journeys into the science of healing minds are made for people like you. People who think deeply, feel fully, and sometimes forget that rest is not a reward. It is a right. If this space brings you comfort tonight, a soft like or a quiet subscribe helps another exhausted mind find their way here. Someone else lying in the dark, looking for the same permission to rest. Every sleepy soul who finds this place arrived the way you did. One quiet moment, finding another. Let your shoulders drop now. Let your jaw unclench. Just slightly. Just enough. You don't need to hold on to anything said here. You don't need to remember a single word. Just notice that warmth beginning to spread, the way it does when something heavy is finally gently set down. The thoughts can drift. The day can wait. Tonight belongs to your quiet mind. Close your eyes and breathe deeply. You're resting where thoughts arrive like clouds and dissolve the same way. Unheld, unhurried. Let your mind soften the way exhaustion does, releasing its grip one breath at a time. And now we begin. Mental exhaustion is real, and it has a measurable biological signature. Researchers using advanced neuroimaging have identified a specific compound called glutamate that accumulates in the prefrontal cortex during sustained cognitive effort. When glutamate builds beyond a certain threshold, the brain begins actively suppressing further complex thought. What you experience as mental tiredness is not a sign of inadequacy. It is your brain's most sophisticated protection system, doing exactly what it was designed to do, telling you, with great precision, that it is time to stop. The prefrontal cortex, the region most sensitive to mental fatigue, is also the seat of decision-making, planning, and emotional regulation. This is why, after a long and demanding day, even small choices feel impossible, and emotions feel closer to the surface than usual. The brain is not failing you. It is conserving. Every sign of exhaustion carries a kind of quiet intelligence, the body finding its way toward what it needs. The brain represents roughly 2% of the body's total weight, yet consumes approximately 20% of its total energy. Most of this energy is not spent on conscious thought. It is spent on the constant background work of maintaining the self, monitoring the body, regulating emotion, updating our internal map of the world. The mind is never truly idle. Even when you believe you are doing nothing, your brain is doing everything. There is a specific neural network called the default mode network, active precisely when the mind appears to wander or rest. Far from being inactive, this network processes emotional memories, simulates future scenarios, and consolidates the meaning of experiences. The moments when your mind drifts between tasks, on the edge of sleep, are not empty moments. They are some of the most productive your mind will ever have. Mental exhaustion affects the brain differently than physical exhaustion affects the body. Physical fatigue is largely localized. Muscles tire in specific regions. Cognitive fatigue spreads diffusely across neural circuits, gradually degrading the quality of communication between brain regions. This is why mental tiredness often feels harder to locate than muscle soreness. It is not in one place. It is a quality of the whole. Research suggests that the experience of mental tiredness is partly a regulatory signal, the brain's way of steering behavior away from further depletion. What this means, in the gentlest possible terms, is that exhaustion is not a failure. It is a form of intelligence, and honoring it, rather than overriding it, may be the most direct path toward feeling well again. That is not a guarantee the science can offer. It is, rather, the invitation that the exhausted mind keeps quietly extending. The amygdala, a small, almond-shaped structure deep in the brain, becomes significantly more reactive under conditions of mental fatigue. Studies using functional brain imaging have shown that an exhausted brain responds to mildly negative stimuli with measurably greater emotional intensity than a rested one. This means that the heightened sensitivity, the way small things feel enormous when you are tired, these are not character flaws. They are neurological events, as real and as temporary as any other signal the body sends. Sleep is not a passive state. From the first minutes of falling asleep, the brain enters a sequence of precisely orchestrated phases, each with its own chemistry, its own electrical signature, and its own specific purpose. For the exhausted mind, this sequence is not merely biological routine. It is the architecture of recovery, a nightly return to the conditions the brain requires in order to restore what the day has worn. The glymphatic system, a network of channels surrounding the brain's blood vessels, becomes dramatically more active during sleep. Cerebrospinal fluid flows through these channels, gently flushing out the metabolic waste that accumulates during waking hours. Among these waste products is beta amyloid, a protein associated with cognitive difficulty when it builds over time. Research, primarily in animal models, with growing support from human studies, suggests that even a single night of poor sleep may slow this clearance process. For the tired mind, sleep is not retreat. It is the cleaning that makes continued thinking possible. So what the exhausted mind reveals at this first threshold of our journey is something both humbling and reassuring. Fatigue is not failure. It is signal. The brain communicating with extraordinary precision that it has reached the edge of what it can hold, and that something deeper, something restorative, is being asked for. What you are feeling tonight is not a problem to be solved. It is an invitation. The stress hormone cortisol follows a daily rhythm called the cortisol awakening response, rising sharply within the first 30 minutes of waking, peaking, and then gradually declining through the day. In people experiencing chronic mental exhaustion, this rhythm is often flattened or dysregulated. The morning rise is blunted. The daytime levels remain elevated. The body loses the elegant arc it was designed to follow, and the mind pays the cost in heaviness and the persistent sense that rest never fully arrives. Chronic mental exhaustion is associated with changes in brain structure over time. Research has found that prolonged periods of high cognitive demand and insufficient recovery are linked to differences in gray matter density in regions involved in emotion regulation and executive function. The brain is a living tissue. It responds to what we ask of it and to what we allow it. Recovery is not an afterthought. It is woven into the structure of the brain itself, as essential to its design as any neuron or synapse. The human nervous system operates through two primary modes: the sympathetic branch, which activates arousal and alertness, and the parasympathetic branch, which governs calm and restoration. Mental exhaustion is closely associated with a nervous system that has spent too long in sympathetic dominance. Too much activation, too little recovery. The transition into sleep requires a genuine shift in this balance, and it begins not with effort, but with the simple physiological fact of stillness. One of the most consistent findings in sleep science is that the perception of safety is a prerequisite for deep rest. This is not metaphorical. The nervous system conducts a continuous, largely unconscious assessment of the environment, evaluating signals of threat and safety through a process researchers call neuroception. When the nervous system registers safety through stillness, warmth, darkness, predictable sound, it begins to release the held tension that prevents sleep from arriving naturally. The brain produces a compound called adenosine throughout the waking hours. Adenosine is a byproduct of neural activity. It accumulates as a kind of biological record of how long and how hard the brain has been working. As adenosine builds, the pressure to sleep increases. This pressure is real and measurable. By the time you feel genuinely exhausted, your brain has been quietly building this chemical case for rest for hours. The desire to sleep is not a weakness. It is biochemistry, patient, persistent, and wise. Slow-wave sleep, also called deep sleep, is the phase most associated with physical restoration and the recovery of cognitive capacity. During this stage, the brain produces large, synchronized electrical waves. These slow oscillations coordinate the transfer of information from the hippocampus, the brain's short-term memory center, to the cortex, where longer-term memories are integrated and stored. For the exhausted mind, slow-wave sleep is not simply rest. It is the night's most active repair shift, doing the work that the day, however long, could never complete. The relationship between emotional exhaustion and cognitive exhaustion is deeply intertwined. Processing emotions requires significant neural resources, particularly in the anterior cingulate cortex and the prefrontal regions. People who spend their days managing difficult feelings, caring for others, or navigating complex relationships often experience the same neurological signatures of exhaustion as those engaged in intensive intellectual work. Caring, deeply and consistently, is one of the most cognitively demanding things a human being can do. Research has refined our understanding of how the brain recovers from emotional labor. Contrary to earlier assumptions, emotional recovery does not primarily occur through distraction. It occurs through a process called emotional consolidation, in which the sleeping brain revisits emotionally significant experiences, gently strips away their acute intensity, and integrates them into a broader understanding of the self. You process what hurts, not by avoiding it, but by sleeping on it. Literally, the hippocampus, the seahorse-shaped structure essential to memory formation, is among the most sleep-dependent regions in the entire brain. When sleep is shortened or disrupted, hippocampal function degrades. New information fails to consolidate. Emotional regulation falters. The ability to access positive memories weakens, while sensitivity to negative ones increases. Sleep deprivation, even partial and short-term, changes what the brain is capable of holding, and therefore, in some quiet ways, shapes what the day ahead will feel like. There is a concept in neuroscience called synaptic homeostasis. The idea that during waking hours, synaptic connections strengthen with each new experience and stimulation. Over the course of a day, the brain becomes increasingly saturated with these strengthened connections. Sleep serves, in part, to restore balance, selectively quieting the less important connections, preserving the more meaningful ones, and returning the brain to a state of readiness. Rest is not emptying the mind, it is curating it. During REM sleep, the phase characterized by rapid eye movement and vivid dreaming, the brain is highly active, but in a distinctive chemical environment. Norepinephrine, a neurotransmitter associated with stress and anxiety, is almost completely absent during REM sleep. Researchers believe this creates a unique condition in which emotional memories can be revisited without triggering the full physiological stress response. The brain essentially processes difficult experiences in a neurochemically gentler space, a kind of protected review that ordinary waking consciousness cannot offer. The relationship between sleep and mental well-being is increasingly understood to be causal rather than merely correlational. Disrupted sleep does not only reflect psychological distress, it actively generates it. Longitudinal studies have found that sleep disruption often precedes the onset of anxiety and low mood by days or weeks. This suggests that allowing sleep to arrive fully, without interruption, may be one of the most direct paths available toward emotional steadiness. Rest is not a consequence of healing. In many cases, it is the mechanism. Brain-derived neurotrophic factor, often referred to as BDNF, is a protein that supports the growth, maintenance, and resilience of neurons. Adequate sleep is consistently associated with healthier levels of this protein, while sleep deprivation tends to reduce them. While many factors influence BDNF production, rest remains one of the most accessible and consistent of them. Every night of genuine sleep is, in this small but meaningful way, an act of care for the brain's long-term capacity to adapt and to heal. There is something called sleep inertia, the groggy, briefly disoriented feeling that lingers in the first minutes after waking. This is not a sign of having slept too much. It is a sign that the brain was in a deep and genuinely restorative phase of sleep when it was pulled back toward consciousness. The deeper the sleep, the more pronounced the inertia. If waking has ever felt difficult, it may simply mean that the night was doing exactly what the exhausted mind had asked it to do. At this first threshold of our journey, 25 facts in, what the exhausted mind reveals is something the science has been quietly confirming for decades. The brain is not a machine that can simply be switched off and on. It is a living system with its own rhythms, its own needs, and its own extraordinary capacity for repair. And the most consistent thing the research shows is this: the mind heals best when it is allowed to stop. Allow yours to stop now, if it wishes. Let's pause here and notice your body, right now, as you breathe out slowly. Your brain is releasing the chemical case it has been building all day for rest. Every exhale lowers glutamate. Every moment of stillness shifts the nervous system toward the branch that heals. Notice the gentle heaviness in your limbs, in your eyelids, along your spine. Trillions of cells working in quiet cooperation. Heart beating, lungs breathing, the glymphatic system beginning its slow, patient cleanse. All of this is happening without your effort, without your instruction. You are already healing. Now we continue. The body does not wait for perfect conditions to begin healing. The moment cognitive load decreases, the moment the mind releases its grip on problem solving, planning, and reviewing, a cascade of restorative processes begins. Heart rate variability increases, indicating greater parasympathetic activity. Cortisol begins its evening descent. Melatonin rises. The body has been waiting for permission, and stillness is the permission it needs. Melatonin, often called the hormone of darkness, is produced by the pineal gland in response to dimming light. It does not cause sleep directly. Rather, it signals to every system in the body that the time for rest has arrived. Research has also found that melatonin functions as a mild antioxidant, supporting cellular repair during the night. Darkness is not empty. For the exhausted mind, it is among the quietest medicines available. The transition between wakefulness and sleep, the hypnagogic state, is a distinctive neurological territory. Brain waves slow from the fast beta waves of alert thinking to the slower alpha waves of relaxed awareness, then to the even slower theta waves that mark the edge of sleep. During this transition, the mind often produces fleeting images and fragmented thoughts. These are not signs that something is wrong. They are signs that the boundary between the day's demands and the night's restoration is finally being crossed. The vagus nerve, the longest cranial nerve in the body, extending from the brainstem through the heart, lungs, and abdomen, is a primary pathway through which the brain and body signal safety to each other. Slow, deep breathing directly stimulates the vagus nerve, increasing its tone and shifting the nervous system toward parasympathetic dominance. This is why a single long exhale, slower than the inhale, can produce a measurable change in how the body feels within seconds. The breath is the fastest path the exhausted mind has between tension and rest. research into heart rate variability, the subtle variation in timing between heartbeats, has revealed it to be a reliable indicator of nervous system resilience. High heart rate variability is associated with better emotional regulation, cognitive flexibility, and stress recovery. Slow, rhythmic breathing, the kind that naturally occurs as we drift towards sleep, directly increases heart rate variability. The body teaches itself to recover through the very act of letting go. The phenomenon, called sleep pressure, the increasing biological need for sleep that builds throughout the day, is regulated by two largely independent systems. The homeostatic system tracks how long you have been awake, accumulating adenosine as it goes. The circadian system runs on an internal clock aligned to the cycle of light and dark. When these two systems align, when adenosine is high and darkness has arrived, the conditions for deep, restorative sleep become nearly irresistible. Tonight, for the exhausted mind, they are fully aligned. Temperature plays a precise role in sleep onset. Core body temperature must drop by approximately 1 to 1.5 degrees Fahrenheit for the sleep process to begin in earnest. This cooling happens automatically as evening arrives. Blood is redirected to the hands and feet, releasing heat from the body's surface. A cool room gently accelerates this process. The slight chill of a nighttime bedroom is not discomfort. It is the body preparing itself, without being asked. Nearly every cell in the human body contains its own internal clock, synchronized to the master circadian rhythm governed by the suprachiasmatic nucleus in the hypothalamus. This means that rest and recovery are not merely brain events. They are coordinated across every organ, every tissue, every cell. Sleep is a whole-body phenomenon. When the exhausted mind finally surrenders to rest, it takes the entire body with it, every system shifting together toward renewal. The immune system is deeply dependent on sleep for its optimal function. During sleep, the production of cytokines, signaling proteins that coordinate immune responses, increases significantly. Some of these cytokines also promote sleep, creating a feedback loop between immunity and rest. The relationship is why adequate rest is consistently associated with faster recovery from both physical and psychological challenges. The body uses the night to repair what the day has worn. And for the exhausted mind, that repair is especially needed. Memory consolidation, the process by which new experiences are stabilized into long-term storage, requires sleep in ways that no amount of additional waking review can replicate. Studies have consistently shown that learning followed by sleep produces stronger, more durable memory traces than learning, followed by an equivalent period of wakefulness. The sleeping brain does not merely preserve what you have learned, it transforms it, linking new information to existing knowledge, finding patterns, extracting meaning. Understanding deepens, quietly, in the dark. Neuroplasticity, the brain's capacity to rewire itself in response to experience, is profoundly sleep-dependent. The structural changes associated with learning, emotional processing, and skill development are consolidated during sleep. Without adequate rest, these changes remain incomplete. Sleep is not just recovery from the day. For the exhausted mind, It is the mechanism by which the day's difficulty becomes the next day's resilience. The quality of sleep, not merely the quantity, determines the depth of its restorative effect. Fragmented sleep, even if long in duration, fails to deliver the extended periods of slow wave and REM sleep that carry the greatest healing potential. This is why the conditions of sleep matter. The stillness, the darkness, the absence of interruption. A long night of fragmented waking is not the same as a shorter night of continuous, unbroken rest. Depth is the thing the exhausted mind is asking for. The prefrontal cortex, the region most affected by mental exhaustion, is also the region that recovers most substantially from adequate sleep. Studies measuring prefrontal function before and after sleep deprivation, and then after recovery sleep, have found that even a single night of full, uninterrupted rest restores a significant portion of the cognitive capacity that exhaustion had eroded. The brain that felt depleted today has a faithful tendency to return. Not always perfectly, not always immediately, but consistently enough that the science finds it remarkable. Emotional regulation, the ability to experience difficult feelings without being overwhelmed, is one of the capacities most sensitive to sleep quality. With adequate rest, the prefrontal cortex maintains its ability to gently moderate the amygdala's reactive responses. The emotional brain and the thinking brain stay in communication. With insufficient sleep, this connection weakens. Resting well is, among many other things, an act of quiet kindness toward the emotions waiting for tomorrow. At this point in our journey, 40 facts into the science of the healing mind, a pattern has become clear. Every system in the brain and body that manages stress, processes emotion, consolidates memory, and maintains resilience is organized around one recurring need: rest. The permission to stop. You are already partway there. Take a gentle breath. Notice how your thoughts have slowed, just slightly, just enough to feel the difference. We are exploring the mind together tonight. You and I, in the quiet space between knowing and sleeping. Strange and beautiful and perfectly still. Let's drift onward. One of the more careful findings in recent sleep science is that the brain can sense when it has been sleep deprived, but often cannot accurately report it. After several nights of reduced sleep, subjective feelings of sleepiness plateau, even as objective cognitive performance continues to decline. The mind adapts to exhaustion and begins to mistake impairment for normalcy. True recovery often feels more complete than expected, because we had quietly forgotten what feeling well was like. Psychological safety, the felt sense that the environment is not threatening, is one of the most powerful regulators of sleep quality, particularly for the exhausted mind. Research in trauma-informed neuroscience has found that the nervous system cannot fully enter deep sleep unless it has assessed the immediate environment as safe. For many people, the mind replays unfinished concerns at night, not out of habit, but because the nervous system is still conducting its check, still deciding whether it is safe to let the day go. The invitation to rest must reach the nervous system, not just the thinking mind. The practice of cognitive diffusion, a concept from acceptance-based psychology, involves relating to thoughts as events in the mind rather than absolute truths. Research has found that this shift in perspective reduces the arousing quality of nighttime rumination. When a worried thought is observed as simply a thought, rather than a fact demanding immediate resolution, its ability to sustain wakefulness diminishes. The mind is not quieted by arguing with its own thoughts. It is quieted by no longer treating every thought as urgent. Slow, rhythmic sound, whether music, rain, or a gentle voice, appears to synchronize neural oscillations in the brain toward lower frequencies. This process, sometimes called neural entrainment, gently nudges the brain toward the frequency ranges associated with relaxation and sleep. Electroencephalography recordings show measurable shifts in brainwave patterns in response to appropriately paced auditory input. A voice that speaks slowly in the dark is not merely a stylistic choice. It is, in a quiet and precise way, a calibration. The body's pain perception decreases significantly during deep sleep. The descending pain modulation systems, which suppress incoming pain signals from the periphery, become more active during certain sleep stages. People with chronic pain consistently report that poor sleep intensifies their experience of it, while restorative sleep reduces it. The night does not simply ignore what hurts. It gently lowers its volume, offering, to the exhausted mind and body alike, a few hours of genuine relief. Research into the neuroscience of compassion has found that self-compassion, extending toward oneself the same kindness one might offer a struggling friend, is neurologically associated with reduced amygdala reactivity and increased activity in the brain's caregiving circuits. In practical terms, this means that the way you speak to yourself when you are exhausted changes your neurological experience of exhaustion. Gentleness is not passive. It is profoundly active, and the science now supports it. The hormone oxytocin, associated with bonding, trust, and social warmth, also appears to play a role in sleep regulation. Elevated oxytocin is associated with reduced cortisol, greater parasympathetic tone, and faster sleep onset. Experiences that generate feelings of connection, warmth, and safety appear to gently support this chemistry. The feeling of being held, even metaphorically, by a familiar voice or a comfortable room is neurochemically distinct from loneliness, and it is more conducive to sleep. Mental exhaustion is associated with a phenomenon called attentional narrowing, in which the depleted brain defaults to a restricted field of focus. This often manifests as repetitive thought, or the sense of being mentally stuck on one particular concern. The narrowing is not permanent. It is a sign of resource depletion, and it resolves, often completely, with adequate rest. The wide-angle view of the mind, the one that can hold multiple things at once without fear, returns with the morning. There is emerging evidence that the quality of rest we experience is shaped not only by sleep duration and architecture, but by our internal narrative about sleep itself. People who hold anxious beliefs about sleeplessness show heightened arousal and greater sleep disruption compared to people who hold more flexible beliefs. The expectation of rest can become part of the invitation to it. Lying here, in this quiet, without urgency or agenda, this is already part of the healing. Halfway through our journey tonight, The answer to what the exhausted mind needs has become clear in its outlines. Not more effort, not more review or resolution or rehearsal of tomorrow. It needs the one thing it cannot generate through striving: the permission to dissolve into the stillness it has been quietly asking for all day. Beneath everything else, you are halfway home. Each thought you've had today was real. Each demand on your attention, each weight you carried, all of it was real. And now consider, your brain has been rebuilding itself through all of it. Every experience today is being evaluated right now. In the quiet processing layers beneath conscious awareness, deciding what to keep, what to soften, what to let dissolve into the larger story of who you are. You have been doing this your entire life, every night, without instruction, without effort. Your mind already knows the way. And we continue. The concept of psychological restoration, developed through decades of environmental psychology research, describes the specific conditions under which the mind recovers its depleted attentional capacity. Directed attention, the focused, effortful kind required for most daily tasks. Fatigues, but involuntary attention, the gentle, effortless engagement that arises in response to soft, interesting, non-threatening experience, does not fatigue in the same way. It restores. Science that gently holds your curiosity, offered slowly in the dark, is precisely this kind of restorative experience for the exhausted mind. The phenomenon of microsleep, brief, involuntary episodes of sleep lasting 1 to 30 seconds, begins to occur in the severely sleep-deprived brain as a form of forced, localized rest. The brain does not wait indefinitely for permission. When the need for sleep becomes pressing enough, it takes what it needs, region by region, moment by moment. The drive toward rest is not a preference. It is a biological imperative, built into the deepest structures of the nervous system. Patient and persistent. Theta waves, the brainwave frequency associated with the edge of sleep, deep relaxation, and creative insight begin to increase as the mind relaxes into the hypnagogic state. It is in this theta territory that the boundary between logical thought and imaginative connection becomes permeable. Many people find that their most original insights, their most compassionate self-understanding, and their most unexpected clarity arise in this liminal space. The threshold of sleep is not empty. It is rich with a different kind of knowing. During slow-wave sleep, the hippocampus appears to replay the day's experiences in compressed sequences, sending these replays to the cortex for integration into longer-term understanding. This process helps explain why a problem that seemed intractable before sleep sometimes resolves with unexpected clarity upon waking. The sleeping brain found a connection that the waking brain, bound by the pressures of the moment, could not see. Sleep does not merely store the day. For the exhausted mind, it quietly interprets it. The relationship between natural environments and mental recovery has become one of the more robustly supported findings in psychology. Time in natural settings, or even exposure to natural sounds and imagery, measurably reduces cortisol, lowers heart rate, and restores attentional capacity more efficiently than equivalent time in demanding environments. The evolutionary logic is intuitive. The nervous system is ancient, and it recognizes the signals of the natural world as signals of safety. Birdsong, rain, flowing water. These are the oldest lullabies the exhausted mind has ever known. Research into the neuroscience of gratitude has found that even brief gratitude reflection before sleep is associated with longer sleep duration, better sleep quality, and reduced nighttime cognitive arousal. The mechanism appears to involve a shift in the brain's default mode activity, away from self-referential worry and toward a broader, more affiliative processing mode. The mind that gently counts what it has holds less tightly to what it fears. Gratitude is, among other things, a neurological invitation to rest. Chronic stress changes the architecture of the brain over time, but so does consistent recovery. Longitudinal research has found that adequate sleep, maintained over time, is associated with preserved gray matter volume in regions that chronic stress tends to erode. The brain does not simply return to baseline after exhaustion. With consistent rest, it gradually rebuilds. The process is slow, quiet, and largely invisible to conscious experience. But it is real, and it is cumulative. The exhausted mind that chooses rest, night after night, is investing in its own future. The insula, a region of the cortex involved in interoception, the sensing of the body's internal state, plays a key role in the subjective experience of exhaustion. When the insula registers the accumulated signals of depletion, the heaviness of limbs, the aching behind the eyes, the effort that has become effortful, it contributes to the conscious sense of being tired. But the insula is also sensitive to the signals of restoration, the warmth of stillness, the rhythm of a slowing breath, the safe darkness of a quiet room. It reads all of these, too, with the same quiet precision. Yawning, long misunderstood as a sign of boredom, may serve a more precise purpose. One emerging line of research suggests it plays a role in regulating brain temperature, with the slow inhalation drawing slightly cooler air across the sinuses. Whether this is its primary function remains an open question among researchers. But the body's rituals of preparation, the yawn, the stretch, the heaviness settling into the limbs, are signals worth noticing. The exhausted mind does not need to understand them. It only needs to follow. There is a concept in neuroscience called default mode suppression, the phenomenon by which focused, task-directed brain activity quiets the default mode network's rumination and self-referential processing. The gentle engagement of listening, following a calm, paced narrative, can achieve this suppression without creating the fatigue of effortful attention. The brain is gently occupied with something soft, and the inner monologue quiets. This is the neurological explanation for why a gentle voice in the dark helps the exhausted mind finally let go. GABA, gamma-aminobutyric acid, is the brain's primary inhibitory neurotransmitter. It reduces neural excitability, dampens anxiety, and is essential to the transition into sleep. The brain also generates the conditions that support natural GABA activity: slow breathing, reduced body temperature, low light, physical stillness. The chemistry of rest does not require anything from outside. It is available right now, in this room, in this quiet, in this breath. The anterior cingulate cortex, involved in both emotional processing and attention, shows distinctive patterns of settling as the mind moves towards sleep. The letting go of focused attention, the softening of emotional urgency, the quiet withdrawal from the day's demands. These are not merely felt experiences. They are measurable changes in the activity of a specific brain region. For the exhausted mind, falling asleep is not weakness. It is a precise and beautiful form of release. Research into how human beings have slept across evolutionary history suggests that sleep in the presence of others, or even the sound of another's steady breathing, may signal safety to the nervous system in ways that support deeper rest. Many people find that a voice, gentle and unhurried, carries something of this ancient comfort. The sound of not being alone in the dark, the exhausted mind, more than most, needs to feel accompanied. Psychological research into rumination, the repetitive, passive focus on distressing thoughts, has identified it as one of the most consistent disruptors of sleep onset for the exhausted mind. But the most effective interruption of rumination is not suppression or distraction. It is a gentle shift toward sensory experience. The feel of the breath, the weight of the body, the softness of the dark. The body, attended to with kindness, gently calls the mind back from wherever it has gone. At this point in our journey, 2/3 of the way through, the science of the healing mind has revealed something that perhaps feels familiar. The body knows how to do this. The brain was built for this exact transition, from effort to ease, from knowing to dissolving. Everything we have explored tonight is simply the scientific description of what your own nervous system is already doing. Right now, in this quiet, you are not working toward rest. You are arriving at it. The phenomenon of sleep rebound, in which the brain increases slow-wave sleep duration following a period of sleep deprivation, demonstrates the exhausted mind's innate intelligence about what it needs. When rest is withheld, the brain does not surrender its restorative agenda. It defers it, and then prioritizes it with greater depth when the opportunity arrives. Tonight may be one of those nights. The sleep that comes may be deeper than usual, because the mind has been patiently waiting longer. Research into the experience of time during dreaming has found something worth holding gently. Studies of lucid dreamers, people who remain conscious that they are dreaming and can signal to researchers while asleep, suggest that dream duration often corresponds more closely to real time than older intuitions assumed. Yet the quality of dream experience feels different, more vivid, more emotionally complete, less bound by the urgency that governs waking hours. Whatever the science ultimately confirms, the sleeping mind inhabits time in its own way, more spacious, somehow more forgiving. The cerebellum, long understood primarily as a motor coordination center, has in recent years been recognized as involved in cognitive and emotional processing as well. During sleep, it is thought to participate in processing procedural memories and integrating complex sequences of experience. though the full extent of its role during rest is still being mapped. What the research consistently shows is that the brain, in sleep, is never simply switched off. For the exhausted mind, every region, even the oldest and quietest, is participating in the work of recovery. Researchers studying contemplative practice have found that even brief periods of mindful rest produce measurable changes in the brain regions associated with attentional control and emotional regulation. The brain is not fixed. It is responsive. Every quiet moment, every evening of chosen stillness, every night of deliberate rest, is a small act of renovation. The exhausted mind that chooses to stop is not giving up. It is rebuilding. Sleep spindles, brief bursts of oscillatory neural activity occurring during stage 2 sleep, appear to suppress the brain's sensitivity to sounds and other stimuli that might otherwise disturb the sleeper. For the exhausted mind, which has spent the day absorbing more than it could fully process, this natural filtering is a form of protection. The sleeping brain builds its own boundaries. It guards its own rest. And the depth of that protection grows with the depth of the sleep itself. The discovery that the brain can reorganize memories during sleep, not just consolidate them, but restructure them, finding new patterns and unexpected associations, has changed how researchers think about insight. Several studies have found that sleep significantly improves performance on tasks requiring novel connections, compared to an equivalent period of quiet wakefulness. For the exhausted mind, this is an extraordinary offering. The night is not merely storing what was learned today. It is discovering what was not yet understood. Interoceptive awareness, the capacity to sense and respond to the body's internal signals, is emerging as one of the most significant factors in psychological resilience and recovery from exhaustion. People with greater interoceptive awareness tend to recover from stress more effectively and experience sleep as more restorative. Paying gentle attention to the body, the breath, the heaviness of the limbs, the slow rhythm of the heart, is not merely a relaxation technique. It is the practice of becoming fluent in the language the body uses to ask for what it needs. There is a concept called allostatic load, the cumulative cost to the body of chronic stress and insufficient recovery. When demand has exceeded recovery for too long, the signs of exhaustion soften into the background, not because they are gone, but because the mind has quietly adapted to carrying them. Rest reveals what was hidden, how much lighter things can feel, how much more spacious the mind becomes when it is given, consistently and without guilt, the time it needs to recover. Research into psychological recovery following difficult periods has consistently found sleep to be among the most important factors in positive outcomes. Not because sleep erases what was difficult, but because the sleeping brain's processing of emotionally significant experience gradually transforms its meaning. What is carried in the body as acute weight can, over time and with rest, become integrated as deeper understanding. The night is long, and it does not leave things unchanged. The exhausted mind that chooses rest is choosing, gently, to let meaning catch up with experience. We are 3/4 of the way through our journey, and the answer to tonight's central question, what does the healing mind need, is no longer emerging. It has arrived. The healing mind needs what you are giving it right now. the permission to be still, the companionship of a gentle voice, the knowledge that what feels like doing nothing is, at the level of neurons and chemistry and biological rhythms, the most restorative thing the human organism can do. You are already healing, somewhere in your body right now. Your heart has beaten more than 2 billion times. Without being asked, without a single reminder, it has a rhythm older than your name, older than your memories, older than anything you have ever worried about. Tonight, your only task is to trust that rhythm, not to direct it, not to improve it, just to feel it. Steady, patient, faithful, carrying you into sleep the same way it has carried you through every other night of your life. You don't need to hold anything. The rhythm already knows. We are almost there now. The sleeping brain does not know it is healing. It simply heals. There is no observer overseeing the glymphatic flush. No part of the mind watching the slow wave oscillations and approving each one. The restoration happens in the spaces between intention, in the quiet that arrives when the watching stops. Tonight, the exhausted mind does not need to monitor its own recovery. It only needs to let it begin. Every night you have ever slept, your brain has revisited something of the day. Not to torment you, to understand it, to place it gently in the larger story of who you are becoming. Tonight will be no different. The night is already preparing to receive what the day was too full to hold. The neurons that fired during the day, forming the traces of experience, will fire again during sleep, quietly. In the dark, they rehearse what mattered. And in rehearsing, they strengthen what the exhausted mind wishes to keep and soften what it is ready to release. Cortisol, which has been slowly receding since late afternoon, reaches its lowest point in the hours around midnight. The body's own chemistry is already moving toward the deepest rest. You are not swimming against a current tonight. You are riding one that has been flowing in the right direction for hours. The body has already been preparing since you lay down. Blood moving gently toward the surface. Warmth releasing outward. The core slowly cooling toward the temperature that sleep requires. The physiology of rest is already well underway. Without effort, without instruction, the exhausted mind does not need to do anything more. The body already knows what to do next. Research suggests the brain consolidates emotional memories with particular care, gently reducing the intensity of the feeling while preserving the meaning. What felt like too much today may feel like something you can hold by morning. Not gone, but transformed. The night works quietly at the edges of what hurt. The pineal gland, no larger than a grain of rice, is releasing melatonin into the bloodstream right now. A soft, chemical tide, rising, signaling to every cell in your body that the time for rest has come. The body is not waiting to be told. It already knows. Somewhere in your brain, adenosine has reached its fullest point. The pressure to sleep that has been building since you woke this morning is now at its height. The biology of rest is fully assembled, patient and ready. It is waiting only for the one thing it cannot create on your behalf: the choosing to let go. Sleep spindles will begin to appear soon, if they have not already. Brief and quiet oscillations, woven through the early stages of sleep. gently turning down the brain's sensitivity to the world outside. For the exhausted mind, this is the night's first gift. The closing of the gate, the quieting of the noise that was too loud for too long. Today, the hippocampus is preparing to speak to the cortex in slow waves, in patient repetition. It will offer today's experiences to the larger library of the self, deciding what stays, what softens, what becomes gradually and without your effort, something you can live with more easily. During the night, your immune system will release cytokines, small proteins that support healing and help regulate the body's responses to the day's demands. For the exhausted mind and body, sleep is repair in its most literal sense. The body knows exactly what it is doing. It has always known. The synaptic connections strengthened by today's experiences will be gently calibrated during sleep, some reinforced, some quietly pruned, so that tomorrow's mind can move with greater ease. The brain is already editing the day into something more manageable, something a little lighter than it was when you lay down. Somewhere in the coming hours, you will dream. The images that arise, strange, familiar, sometimes beautiful, sometimes puzzling, are the exhausted mind in its most intimate space, making sense of things, connecting what was separate, feeling, finally, what the day did not have room for. Brain-derived neurotrophic factor will rise during slow-wave sleep, gently supporting the growth and resilience of neurons. The mind that sleeps tonight is investing in the mind that will meet tomorrow, not through effort, through the simple, extraordinary act of rest. Breathing is already slower than it was an hour ago. The body has taken over what the mind no longer needs to manage. And in this slowing, the arc of tonight's healing is nearly complete. From the exhaustion that greeted you at the beginning, to the quiet chemistry of repair that is already underway. Each breath now is less an effort than an arrival. The muscles of the face, the jaw, the brow, the small muscles around the eyes, often hold the last of the day's tension. As sleep deepens, they release. The face returns to its most natural expression, something like peace, something the exhausted mind has been working toward all day without knowing quite what it was looking for. There is no correct way to fall asleep. The brain does not require a particular mental posture or a specific kind of stillness. It requires only the absence of effort, the willingness to stop directing, and the quiet trust that what comes next is already in motion, already gentle, already on its way. In the hours before dawn, the deepest slow-wave sleep gives way to longer and longer periods of dreaming. The mind becomes a dreamer, and in dreaming, it does something that waking life rarely allows. It lets the logic go and follows the feeling, the exhausted mind. In this, finds a freedom it did not know it still had. The healing mind does not announce itself. There is no moment when recovery declares its arrival. It simply accumulates in cells, in chemistry, in the gradual lightening of what felt too heavy. You will not notice it happening, but it is happening right now, in the quiet you have given yourself tonight. The last fact of tonight's journey is this: Every time you have ever slept and woken again, you have been returned to yourself, slightly reconstituted, slightly restored, slightly more capable of the next thing than you were before the night began. That has always been true. It is true again tonight. And so, our quiet journey through the healing mind comes gently to a close. We began with a feeling you already knew. The exhaustion that settles into the body and refuses to leave. The thoughts that keep turning when the day has already ended. And we discovered, across 100 facts, that this feeling is not a flaw in you. It is a signal from a brain doing its most intelligent work, building the case for rest, calibrating for recovery, preparing to heal. We traced the adenosine building through the day. We followed the glymphatic current, beginning its patient cleanse. We held the finding that cortisol follows its own arc toward quiet, that the body does not need to be convinced to move toward rest. It is already moving. Perhaps that is worth staying with tonight. The same forces that shaped how cells repair themselves in the small hours also shape how your nervous system releases the held tension of a long day. The chemistry of healing is ancient. It does not hurry. Much of what restores the exhausted mind happens in silence, below awareness, between heartbeats, in the gentle oscillations of a brain that has finally been given permission to do what it has always known how to do. By pausing to notice this, we become a little less afraid of exhaustion and a little more able to trust the night. In these final minutes, take the deepest breath you can, as deep as possible. Consider this, right now, in the quiet of the night. The same healing processes are underway in every sleeping mind on Earth. Billions of brains in the deep architecture of rest, replaying, consolidating, gently washing clean, separate lives. One ancient rhythm. You are not alone in this exhaustion, and you are not alone in this healing. Let your entire being dissolve into the soft gravity of the bed, into the slow chemistry of rest, into the quiet that needs nothing from you. Prepare for deep sleep. No boundaries left, only peace. For anyone still here, still awake, if tonight felt like the permission you needed, you might pass it quietly to someone else who is searching for the same. One healing night, shared softly, with someone else lying in the dark. Whatever you have been turning over today, the unfinished thoughts, the tomorrow that has not yet arrived, the weight of a day that asked more than it gave, you do not need to carry it into sleep. It will still be there in the morning. Tonight, you belong only to yourself. You have traveled inward tonight. Through corridors most people never pause to notice. You touched the architecture of who you are and found it more patient, more forgiving, more capable of renewal than it seemed when the day was at its fullest. You can allow these thoughts of the healing mind to fade now, like the last image of a dream dissolving at dawn. Present, then softer, then simply part of everything, leaving only the quiet, unheld calm behind. Let your breathing deepen. Let your body feel heavier, as if all that was carried today is being sorted by careful, invisible hands, and is simply, gently, setting itself down. If sleep comes, let it carry you the way the night's own consolidation does. Not with force, but with quiet intention. into a realm where time and weight no longer matter. If your eyes are still open, the next video is waiting for you, ready to continue the journey. But if they are closed, stay there. Stay in the darkness that feels safe and warm. Tomorrow, your mind will still be there, still tending, still weaving, still becoming. But tonight belongs to stillness. Rest well, gentle explorer. And remember, your mind already knows the way home. Good night.